So what I'm going to do in this video is basically tell you what each parameter or what each page does within the Syntakt. We're going to start off in the top left hand corner and this one. So let's get to it. Right, okay, so in this top left hand corner, what this pot does is it's for the main volume. So this sets the overall main volume for the outputs and the headphone output. So in the rear connections video, what we have on the back is we have the connections. So this is the headphone connection, the left and right outputs, inputs left and right, MIDI in, MIDI out, through, MIDI through, USB, DC in, and power. So what this controls is basically these three outputs here. So next up we have the screen, which is this here. So what this is 128 by 64 pixel OLED screen, and this shows you different animations for each different page. Animations such as that or that, and each parameter has its own distinctive look and feel to it. So that is a screen that tells you information of whatever it is that you need to know about whatever it is that you're doing. Number 3 is this sound button or pattern menu. This opens the pattern menu where pattern management is located. The secondary function is access to the sound menu. So what it means by secondary function, we're going ahead, is we have some red lettering underneath, and all we have to do to access that is by pressing this button here, which is the function button. So all we do is press function button and then hit that, and then it gets onto the sound page, and you'll notice that the LEDs turn red, whereas if we're on the normal page, just hit the pattern page, then they'll turn white. To exit that, we just press the button again. Next up is number 4, which is this button here. This is the global settings. This contains the management of projects, MIDI configuration, and the system settings. The secondary function saves the current project. Secondary function, which is save the current project that you're working on. Number 5, the effects, which is this button here. The effects button selects the effects tracks that lets you access its parameter page. The secondary function opens the analog effects routing block. This is where you can set your tracks, effects, external sound sources, and route them to an FX bus or not. So for example, if I click on that, go into that. If not, it's on the FX page menu. So each one of these pages will have a video to it. So if you go and check out that video, then you'll know more information about what is within and what these parameters do within that page. Next up, the tempo page. So the tempo page, this opens the tempo menu where you can adjust the global and pattern tempo and also adjust the swing. The secondary function makes it possible to tap the tempo. So by clicking function and then tapping, we can set our own tempo by doing it that way. Alternatively, we can just use this to create a tempo that we want. So next up, number 7, the no page or the no key. So the no key is used for exiting an active menu, backing one step up, or negating. The secondary function is to temporarily reload the active pattern. So if I had a pattern going on and I press function and I save the pattern, which is going to be the next button, I would save the pattern. So if I did a lot of filter sweeps, resonant changes, build-ups, reverb, and all sorts of stuff for a build-up or whatever it is that you want to do, then to exit that or to get back to the normal track, you just press function and then you reload the pattern of what you saved. So the yes key, which is this button here, this is used for entering submenus, selecting and confirming. The secondary function is to temporarily save the active pattern. Next up, number 9, which is the data entry. So that are these knobs here. What they are is encoders, so you can push them in or you can turn them. And as you can see on the screen, it's changing something within the screen. The data entry knobs are labelled A to H, so we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And these are used for setting parameter values. You press and turn the knobs to change the values in larger increments. So if I press in and hold it down, it takes it up. As you can see at the top, it's taking it up by 4 semitones at a time. And that is different on each, obviously, parameter or whatever it is that you're wanting to do. Number 10 is the parameter keys. So it's these buttons here. So these keys access the parameter pages of an active track. The keys indicate if the page is active, on, or inactive, off. So just going through them briefly and quickly, there are videos on each one of these pages. So starting off with the trigger or the trigger page. This accesses parameters such as note, velocity, and other trigger related parameters. The secondary function accesses the Quantize page or the Quantize menu. So Quantize menu, so you can do it per track or global. So if you notice on the left hand side it says track 6, that's because track 6 is selected. So I can quantize that value by either turning this E knob or F, as you can see below each of the parameters. To exit that page, we can either press no, back up, or alternatively, I can just click on the page again. So moving on to SYN or the synth page. Here you can find parameters related to the selected machines or MIDI tracks in this page as parameters such as channel, program, and aftertouch. The secondary function is to access the machines where you want to select the machine for the track. So for example, if on this track 6, I select function and machine, I can select whatever machine I want. So to exit, just press no. Alternatively, on this page, if you want to select a machine quickly, rather than pressing function and machine, you can just double tap it. And then that way you can get onto the menu. FLTR, so the filter page. Here are the parameters for the multimode filter of the audio tracks. On media tracks, you will find the CC value setting here, and the secondary function accesses the delay page. So we won't look at the MIDI tracks in this video, that'll be for another video. But basically what we have here, which again we're covering more detail on another video if you find the filter video, we'll cover all these parameters within that. And then alternatively, holding function and then delay takes you to the delay page. Amp or the amp page. This takes you to the amp page where you'll find parameters of the amplitude envelope and the effect sends. On the MIDI tracks, you will find CC selected settings here, and the secondary function accesses the reverb page. And again, we won't look at the MIDI tracks here, we'll do that in a separate video altogether. And the secondary function that accesses the reverb page. And last up is the LFO page. This accesses the LFO parameters of an active track. The secondary function is to access the mixer page. So in here we've got 2 LFOs, and to access the mixer page we hold function and then click on mixer. As you can see, this has got 3 pages to it, so if we hold down function again and then click on mixer, these will help us, or these will take us through each of the pages. To exit that again, we just click on the LFO button. Next up are the arrows. So we've got an up arrow, a down arrow, a left and a right. So these are used for navigations and for setting parameter values. In menus, they are called up, down, left and right. The secondary function up and down is to access modifier setup menu. And the left and right buttons are if we have a sequencer set. For example, just quickly, if we have a sequence set here, what we can do is we can nudge the time forward or backwards. Next up is the page. This selects an active pattern page in grid recording mode. If the pattern is made up of more than 16 steps, the pattern page LEDs will indicate how many pattern pages the active pattern consists of. So what that basically means is if we hold function and scale, what we are on now is we are on the pattern page. So we can access more patterns here. So 1 to 4 has 16 steps. 2 to 4, that's 32 steps, as you can see, they're counting up. 3 to 4, which is 48 steps, and 4 to 4, which is 64 steps. So you can basically have a 64-step sequencer. There's also a button here where we can use a scale. So we can have this played back at 1/8 the speed, 1/4 the speed, half the speed, 3/4 the speed, its normal speed, 3 seconds speed, and twice the speed. So you can do some nice polyrhythmic patterns. You can do something that's unsyncopated, and that's different to the other tracks, basically. Add more interest in your sounds. Also on this fill page, we have a button that is in white, which is called fill. We will look at that in the step sequencer video and what that does, but basically just to fill you in on what it does, no pun intended there, but just to fill you in on what it does is if we have a pattern like this, we can set this to basically fill or not fill. So what that means is when I press this button down and it's playing, it will either play that when it's pressed down or it won't play that when it's pressed down, depending on what this setting is. Next up are the trigger keys. So these are numbered 1 to 16. So this is our step sequencer along with track numbers. So these keys are used for entering or removing sequencer triggers and parameter locks. In combination with the data entry knobs, they're also used to select a track, bank, and pattern in combination with the track, pattern, and bank keys. That's these two here, the pattern and bank keys. We'll get onto them after this. So basically what this means is these are the trigger buttons. We can select a track. These 4 buttons have got no machines attached to them, as these are called the modifier buttons. So what these do are basically underneath 13, 14, 15, and 16 are a re-trigger, velocity, or you can have your own modulation or mod on these 2 keys here. So on this key, as you can hear, this is the velocity. So if you're playing in something, you're recording it in, you want different velocities, but you're playing it in. That's how you do it there. Again, if we select the re-trigger, you can do some nice sort of fill, choppy stuff. Maybe some sort of trap stuff with that, whatever you want to do. So tracks 1 to 12. So tracks 1 to 8, they're your digital machines. 9 to 12 are your analog machines, with track 12 being your cymbals. So if we just go back up onto this one here, if I want to do let's say a 4 on the floor, all I will do is hold copy. This acts as the step sequencer. So all we do is put our notes in. And that's how we do that. To record it in, all we have to do is hold copy down or hold the record button down and then press play. And then if we press it again, it goes either between quantized and unquantized. So quantized means it will fix it to a grid. Unquantized means it won't. So if we look here, if I just play this in, so as we notice, this one here is a bit late. So if we hold this down and then we move the timing, and this is how you can have it more unquantized if you like. So next up is the bank button, which is this button here. What we have is we have banks that are numbered A to H, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and what they have within each bank is 16 of these patterns. So if I go to bank A and I select pattern 1, that holds notes or a sequence that is in there. I go over to pattern 11. So to access our own page, all we have to do is go back to either that button or this one. So next up we have the stop, the play and the record button. So the stop button, that stops the playback, and the secondary function is to paste an operation. So let's say this sound has a lot of delay on it and it's going on and on. All we have to do to stop that delay is double tap. So what you could do with that is you could, if you had a sequence going on and you wanted to stop the music dead. Next up, the play button. The play button starts the sequence of playback. Pressing play the second time pauses the playback. The secondary function is to clear the operation. So the play button starts the sequence. If we press it again, it pauses the sequence and then we can start again. So the record key activates and deactivates the grid recording mode, which is this. That's the grid recording mode. If you press record and play, this activates live recording mode, so you can switch between quantized and unquantized. And then if you press the recording and stop, this activates the step recording mode. The secondary function is to copy an operation. This button here, which is track, if I press the track on one of the triggers, this selects a track for editing, and this does it without playing the sound, if you notice. Whereas if I let go of that button, the sound plays. That's good for live situations if you want to get to, I don't know, let's say a chord sound and you want to do something with the filter, and then you want to go back to your snare and do something with that. It saves you from not pressing and making the sound active. The secondary function for this button is to hit keyboard mode. So if I go over to chord and then I press function, keyboard, I'm now in chromatic mode, which means it's basically a keyboard. So this starts at C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, so forth. And then we hit these two buttons to go up and down an octave. So the down button, vice versa, go up an octave. To exit that mode, we hold function and track, and then that exits to the main page. This function button here, which we have used a lot already and which you probably know what it does. This button, if you press and hold it and another key, this accesses the second function of that key. The secondary functions are written in red, which are on the front, which are underneath here, all these. Last up is the level and data parameter. The level and data sets the overall volume level for an active track. It is also used for setting parameters and scrolling through lists. The secondary function opens up the browser, the sound browser. So to do that, we hold function and press it in, and then this loads up a sound on whatever track it is. To exit that page, we press no to come out of the menu. That takes us back onto our parameter pages. And that is an overview of the buttons on the Syntakt. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you found some use out of it, please just comment, rate and subscribe. It means a lot. It really does mean a lot. And I look forward to seeing you in the next videos.